The bomber was dying. Flight Lieutenant James Thornhill could feel it. The port outer engine was gone, torn apart by flak over the target. The starboard inner was coughing, sputtering, losing oil pressure. The controls were heavy, sluggish. The Lancaster was barely responding. Thornhill gripped the yoke, fought to keep the aircraft level, fought to keep them in the air. Beside him, his co-pilot, Flight Sergeant Robert Davies, was working the fuel mixture, trying to coax more power from the remaining engines. Behind them, the rest of the crew was silent. No chatter on the intercom. Just the sound of wind screaming through holes in the fuselage. The sound of metal groaning. The sound of a dying aircraft limping home. They had bombed the target, or they thought they had. The briefing had been clear. Railway junction, 3 miles southeast of the village of Saint-Laurent, northern France. The junction was vital. German supply lines ran through it. Destroy it and you cut off supplies to the front. That was the mission. That was the order. 7 Lancaster bombers. 14,000 pounds of high explosive. Drop them on the junction. Come home. Simple. Clean. Thornhill had done this a dozen times. This was his 13th mission. He was 24 years old. He had been flying bombers for 2 years. He was good at it. His crew trusted him. His commanders trusted him. Tonight had been supposed to be routine. Drop the bombs. Turn for home. Survive another night. But something had gone wrong. The navigator, Flight Sergeant William Harris, had called out the coordinates. Thornhill had flown to the mark. The bomb aimer, Sergeant Peter Collins, had released the payload. 4,000 pounds of bombs. Gone. Falling toward the target. Falling toward the railway junction. Except Collins had seen something. Had seen it too late. Had seen buildings. Not railway buildings. Houses. Civilian houses. Collins had said so. Had said it over the intercom. Said, "I think we hit the village." Thornhill had not responded. Had not wanted to believe it. Had told himself it was dark. Collins had been mistaken. They had hit the target. They had followed the coordinates. They had done their job. But now, flying home with 2 engines failing and flak holes in the wings. Thornhill was thinking about what Collins had said. Thinking about the buildings. Thinking about whether they had made a mistake. Thinking about whether they had killed the wrong people. The starboard inner engine died. Just stopped. No warning. No coughing. Just dead. Thornhill's heart sank. 2 engines gone. The Lancaster could fly on 2 engines. Could limp home on 2. But barely. And they were still over France. Still over enemy territory. Still 200 miles from the coast. Still 200 miles from safety. Thornhill said into the intercom, "Everyone listen. We are losing altitude. We are not going to make it home. We need to lighten the load. Get rid of everything. Guns, ammunition, equipment. Everything that is not bolted down, throw it out." The crew obeyed. Thornhill heard the sound of metal clanging. Heard the rear turret gunner, Sergeant Thomas Reed, jettisoning the guns. Heard the wireless operator, Sergeant David Palmer, throwing out the radio. Heard everything being stripped away. But it was not enough. The Lancaster was still sinking, still losing altitude, still dying. The port inner engine caught fire. Orange flames licking out of the cowling. Black smoke pouring into the night. Thornhill saw it through the cockpit window. Saw the fire spreading. Knew what it meant. Fire on an aircraft was death. Fire meant fuel lines rupturing, fuel igniting, the entire aircraft exploding. They had maybe 2 minutes, maybe less. Thornhill said, "We are bailing out. Everyone to your positions. Prepare to jump." Davies looked at him. Said, "We are over France. If we bail out, the Germans will find us." Thornhill said, "If we do not bail out, we die. I would rather take my chances with the Germans." Davies nodded. He said, "Yes, sir." Thornhill reached for the bailout alarm. Pulled it. A bell rang through the aircraft. The signal. Time to jump. Time to leave. Time to hope the parachutes worked. Thornhill kept the bomber level. Kept it steady. Gave his crew time to jump. One by one they went. Harris out the front hatch. Collins out the nose. Palmer out the rear hatch. Reed out the tail. Davies waited. Waited until everyone else was gone. Then he looked at Thornhill. Said, "Your turn, sir?" Thornhill said, "No. You go. I will hold her steady." Davies said, "Sir." Thornhill said, "Go. That is an order." Davies hesitated. Then he nodded. grabbed his parachute, jumped. Thornhill was alone. Alone in a burning aircraft. Alone at 20,000 feet. Alone with the controls. He counted to 10, gave Davies time to clear the aircraft. Then he let go of the yoke, stood up, grabbed his parachute, clipped it on, walked to the hatch, looked down, saw nothing but darkness, saw nothing but the ground waiting below. Thornhill jumped. The cold hit him like a fist. The wind tore at his flight suit. He tumbled, spun, pulled the ripcord. The parachute deployed, jerked him upright, slowed his fall. Thornhill looked up, saw the chute open above him, white silk against black sky. He looked down, saw the ground rising, saw fields, trees, a village, lights. He was drifting toward the village, toward houses, toward people. Thornhill pulled on the risers, tried to steer away, could not. The wind was too strong. He was going to land in the village, or near it. He hoped it was empty, hoped no one would see him, hoped he could hide, find his crew, evade capture, make it to the coast, make it home. That was the hope. That was the plan. But Thornhill had a bad feeling, a feeling that something was wrong, that something had already gone very wrong, that landing in this village was going to be a problem. Thornhill hit the ground hard, rolled, came up tangled in parachute lines. He struggled, got free, stood up, looked around. He was in a field, plowed earth, rows of crops, and beyond the field a village, small, maybe 50 houses, stone buildings, tiled roofs, a church, a square, everything dark except for a few lights. Thornhill saw smoke rising, saw fire, saw buildings collapsed, saw rubble. His stomach turned. He knew what he was seeing, knew what had happened. The village had been bombed, recently, very recently, maybe an hour ago, maybe less. And Thornhill knew who had done it, knew with a sickening certainty. His bomber, his crew, his mission. They had missed the target. They had hit the village. Collins had been right. They had killed civilians. They had killed French people, people who were supposed to be on their side, people they were supposed to be liberating. Thornhill stood there staring at the smoke, at the ruined buildings, at the devastation. And he thought about what that meant, thought about what would happen when the villagers found him, thought about whether they would help him or kill him. Footsteps, behind him. Thornhill spun around, reached for his sidearm, a Webley revolver, standard issue, 6 rounds. He drew it, pointed it, saw figures approaching, 3 of them, old men, farmers, carrying pitchforks, shovels, walking slowly, cautiously. They saw the gun, stopped. One of them spoke, French. Thornhill did not understand. He said in English, "I am British, Royal Air Force." The man spoke again, still French. Then another man stepped forward, older, maybe 60, gray hair, lined face. He said in English, "You are British." Thornhill said yes. The old man looked at him, looked at the parachute, looked at the burning village. He said, "You did this." Thornhill felt his throat tighten. He said, "What?" The old man pointed at the village. "Said you bombed us. 1 hour ago. British bombers. You killed 40 people. My neighbors, my friends, children. You killed them." Thornhill stared at him, could not speak, could not breathe, could not think. 40 people. Dead. Because of him. Because of his bombs. The old man said you were aiming for the railway. Yes. Thornhill nodded. The old man said you missed. By 3 miles. You hit us instead. Thornhill lowered his gun. He said, "I am sorry. I did not know. We did not mean to." The old man said sorry does not bring them back. Thornhill said no, it does not. The old man stared at him. Long silence. Then he said, "Come. The Nazis are coming. We must hide you." Thornhill did not move. He said, "Why? Why would you hide me? I killed your people." The old man said, "Yes, you did. But the Nazis are worse. If they find you, they will kill you. Then they will kill us for not turning you in. So we hide you. Not because we forgive you, but because we are not like them. We do not murder prisoners, even when they deserve it. Now come. before the Germans arrive. Thornhill followed. He did not know what else to do, did not know if this was a trap, did not know if the old man would hand him over, did not know anything except that he had killed 40 people, that he was a murderer, that the people whose families he had destroyed were now trying to save his life. Thornhill walked through the village, saw the damage up close, saw a house with the roof collapsed, saw a wall blown open, saw a child's toy in the rubble, a doll, torn and burned. Thornhill stopped, stared at the doll, thought about the child who had owned it, thought about whether the child was alive, or dead, or buried under the rubble. The old man said, "Keep moving. Do not look. It will not help." Thornhill kept walking, but he could not stop looking, could not stop seeing, could not stop knowing what he had done. They reached a barn. The old man opened the door, said inside, quickly. Thornhill went inside, saw hay, farm equipment, a ladder to a loft. The old man said, "Climb, hide in the loft, do not make noise, do not move. If the Germans search, they will check the barn. If they find you, we all die. Do you understand?" Thornhill said yes. The old man said good. He turned to leave. Thornhill said, "Wait. What is your name?" The old man looked back, said, "My name is Claude. My wife was killed tonight, by your bombs. She was in the church, praying. The roof collapsed. She is dead. And now I am hiding the man who killed her." Thornhill said, "I am sorry." Claude said, "I know. But sorry is not enough. It will never be enough." He walked out, closed the door, left Thornhill alone in the dark, alone with his guilt, alone with the knowledge that he was alive because of the mercy of a man whose wife he had killed. Thornhill climbed into the loft, lay down in the hay, closed his eyes, and waited. Waited for the Germans, waited for his crew, waited for whatever came next, and he wondered if he deserved to be saved, wondered if maybe he should have died in the crash, wondered if living was actually the punishment. Thornhill woke to voices, German voices, shouting, boots on cobblestone, dogs barking. He froze, lay perfectly still in the hay, listened. The voices were close, very close, maybe 50 yards, maybe less. Thornhill moved slowly, crawled to the edge of the loft, looked down through a crack in the floorboards, saw the barn door, saw light filtering through the gaps, saw shadows moving outside, German soldiers, searching the village, searching for him, searching for his crew. The barn door opened. Thornhill held his breath. A German soldier stepped inside, Feldwebel, sergeant, carrying a rifle, MP-40 submachine gun slung over his shoulder. The soldier looked around, looked at the hay, the equipment, the ladder. He called out in German. Another soldier appeared, younger, private, also armed. The sergeant said something, pointed at the loft. Thornhill's heart hammered. They were going to search the loft. They were going to find him. He reached for his Webley. 6 rounds, 2 soldiers. He could shoot them, could kill them both. But then every German in the village would hear, would come running, would find him, would kill him, and would kill Claude, would kill everyone who helped. Thornhill could not shoot, could not fight, could only hide, could only hope. The young private walked to the ladder, started climbing. Thornhill backed away, pressed himself against the far wall, covered himself with hay. The private's head appeared, then his shoulders, then his rifle. He was in the loft. Thornhill stopped breathing. The private looked around, swept his rifle left, right, looked at the hay. Thornhill could see him, could see his face. Young, maybe 19, scared. The private did not want to be here, did not want to search, did not want to find anyone. He just wanted to go home, just like Thornhill. The private poked the hay with his rifle barrel, poked near Thornhill, inches away. Thornhill did not move, did not breathe, did not exist. The private poked again, then stopped, called down to the sergeant, said something in German. The sergeant responded, The private climbed back down. Both soldiers left, closed the barn door, walked away. Thornhill exhaled. He had been seconds from death, seconds from discovery, seconds from a bullet. But he had survived. The private had not looked hard enough, had not wanted to find him, had just gone through the motions. Thornhill thought about that, thought about the young German, thought about how he was just a soldier, just following orders, just trying to survive, just like Thornhill. Hours passed. Thornhill stayed in the loft, did not move, did not make noise, listened to the sounds outside, German voices fading, dogs moving away. The search was moving on, moving to other parts of the village, other farms, other hiding places. Thornhill thought about his crew, thought about whether they had been found, whether they were hiding, whether they were alive. He thought about Davies, Collins, Harris, Palmer, Reed, 5 men, his responsibility, his crew. He had to find them, had to make sure they were safe, had to get them home. That was his job. That was his duty. But he could not move, could not leave, not yet, not while the Germans were still searching. The barn door opened again. Thornhill tensed, reached for his gun, but the voice that spoke was French. "Claude," he said, British. "It is safe. Come down." Thornhill hesitated. Could be a trap. Could be Germans using Claude. Could be anything. But Thornhill had no choice. He climbed down the ladder, saw Claude standing in the doorway, alone. No Germans, no soldiers, just an old man. Claude said, "The Germans are gone, for now. They will return tonight. We must move you." Thornhill said, "Move me where?" Claude said, "To a safer place. The barn is too obvious. They will search again, more carefully. You cannot stay." Thornhill said, "What about my crew? Have you seen them?" Claude said, "Yes, 2 of them. We found them. They are hidden. One is injured." Thornhill said, "Who?" Claude said, "The one with the broken arm." Thornhill thought, that was Harris, the navigator. Claude said, "He fell badly. His arm is broken. He is in pain, but alive." Thornhill said, "Where is he?" Claude said, "In the church basement, with the other one." Thornhill said, "What about the rest?" Claude said, "We have not found them. Maybe they were captured. Maybe they are hiding elsewhere. Maybe they are dead." Thornhill said, "I need to find them." Claude said, "No. You need to stay hidden. If you go looking, you will be caught. And if you are caught, we are all dead. Do you understand?" Thornhill did not answer. He understood. But he did not like it. Did not like leaving his men. Did not like hiding while they might be in danger. But Claude was right. Moving now was suicide. Claude said, "Come, follow me. We go to the church. You will stay there. It is safer." Thornhill followed. They left the barn, walked through the village. It was morning now, gray, overcast, cold. Thornhill saw villagers, old men, women, children. They stared at him, silent, hostile. He saw the damage again, saw the collapsed houses, the rubble, the fresh graves, wooden crosses, dirt mounds, 40 graves, 40 people he had killed. Thornhill counted them, counted each cross, counted each mound, counted his guilt. A woman spat at him. An old man turned away. A child threw a stone. It hit Thornhill in the shoulder. He did not react, did not flinch, deserved worse. Claude said, "Ignore them. They are angry. They have a right to be. But they will not kill you. I have told them. We are not murderers." Thornhill said, "They should kill me." Claude stopped, looked at him, said, "Maybe. But they will not. Because if they do, the Germans will punish them, will burn the village, will kill everyone. So you live, not because we want you to, but because we have no choice." They reached the church, stone building, old, medieval. The roof was partially collapsed. The bombing had damaged it. Thornhill saw the hole, saw the broken beams, saw where the roof had fallen in, saw where Claude's wife had died. Claude saw him looking. He said, "That is where she was, praying at the altar. The roof came down, killed her instantly. I dug her out myself, buried her yesterday. Thornhill said I am sorry. Claude said I know, but sorry does not matter. She is still dead. He opened the church door, said inside, down the stairs, the basement. Your men are there. Thornhill walked in. The church was dark, cold, empty, pews overturned, debris everywhere. He saw the stairs, walked down, into the basement, saw Harris sitting against the wall, arm in a makeshift sling, pale, in pain. Saw Collins next to him, uninjured. Both men looked up, saw Thornhill. Harris said, "Sir, thank God. We thought you were dead." Thornhill said, "I am alive. Barely. What about you?" Harris said, "My arm is broken. Hurts like hell. But I will live." Collins said, "Sir, what happened? How did we end up here?" Thornhill said, "We bombed the village. Killed 40 people. The villagers found us. They are hiding us." Harris stared. He said, "They are hiding us. After we killed their families?" Thornhill said, "Yes." Harris said, "Why?" Thornhill said, "Because they are better than us." Collins said, "Sir, we need to get out of here. We need to find the others. We need to get to the coast. Get back to England." Thornhill said, "I know. But we cannot move yet. The Germans are searching. If we move, they will find us. We wait. We hide. We survive." Collins said, "For how long?" Thornhill said, "I do not know. As long as it takes." Harris said, "Sir, the villagers are not going to protect us forever. They hate us. They want us dead." Thornhill said, "Yes. But they hate the Germans more. So we are safe. For now," Harris said. "And when the Germans leave?" "What then?" Thornhill said, "Then we leave too. We find the others. We get to the coast. We go home." Harris said, "And what do we tell command? That we bombed the wrong target. That we killed civilians. That we are cowards who hid while Frenchmen protected us." Thornhill said, "We tell them the truth." Harris said, "The truth will get us court-martialed." Thornhill said, "Maybe. But it is still the truth." Footsteps on the stairs. Thornhill turned, drew his gun. A man appeared. French. Younger than Claude. Maybe 40. Thin. Hard face. He looked at Thornhill. Looked at the gun. He said in English, "Put that away. I am not your enemy." Thornhill lowered the gun. The man said, "My name is Pierre. I lost my daughter in the bombing. She was 6 years old. Her name was Marie." Thornhill felt his stomach drop. He said, "I am sorry." Pierre said, "Sorry is a word. It means nothing. My daughter is dead. Your bombs killed her. And now I am supposed to help you. Supposed to hide you. Supposed to protect you. Claude says we must. He says the Germans are worse. He says we are not murderers. But I think maybe we should be. I think maybe you deserve to die." Thornhill said, "Yes, I do." Pierre stared at him. He said, "What?" Thornhill said, "I deserve to die. I killed your daughter. I killed 40 people. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. And now I have to live with it. But if you want to kill me, I will not stop you. I will not fight. I will accept it. Because you are right. I deserve it." Pierre did not move, did not speak, just stared. Then he said, "You are a coward." Thornhill said, "Yes, I am." Pierre said, "No. I mean, you are a coward for wanting me to kill you. You want me to do it so you do not have to live with the guilt, so you do not have to face what you did. That is cowardice. Real courage is living. Real courage is carrying the guilt. Real courage is looking my daughter's grave in the eye and knowing you killed her, and living anyway." Thornhill said, "I do not want to live." Pierre said, "Too bad. You do not get to choose. You killed her. Now you live with it. That is your punishment. And it is worse than death." He turned, walked back up the stairs, left Thornhill standing there, left him with his guilt, left him with the knowledge that Pierre was right. Death was escape, life was punishment, and Thornhill was going to live, whether he wanted to or not. Pierre came back that evening. He did not speak, did not look at Thornhill, just walked down the stairs carrying something, a small box, wooden, old. He sat down on the floor, opened the box, took out a photograph, held it, stared at it. Thornhill watched, did not move, did not speak. Pierre said her name was Marie. She was 6 years old. She liked to draw. She wanted to be a teacher. She was afraid of thunder. She loved her mother. She loved me. And now she is dead, because you dropped bombs on my village instead of on the railway. Thornhill said nothing. There was nothing to say. Pierre held up the photograph, said, "Look at her. Look at what you killed." Thornhill looked, saw a little girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, smiling, holding a stuffed rabbit. She looked happy, innocent, alive. Thornhill felt his throat close, felt tears coming. He said she was beautiful. Pierre said yes, she was. And you burned her. Your bombs buried her under rubble. It took me 3 hours to dig her out. 3 hours of moving stones and beams and dirt. 3 hours of hoping she was alive. She was not. She was crushed. Her body was broken. I carried her out. I buried her. I put her rabbit in the grave with her, because she could not sleep without it. And now she is in the ground. And you are alive. Explain that to me. Explain how that is fair. Thornhill could not. He said it is not fair. It is not right. It should have been me. Pierre said yes. It should have been. But it was not. It was her. And now I have to live knowing that the man who killed my daughter is sitting in my church, eating my food, hiding from the same Germans who would kill me if they knew I was helping you. Tell me, how do I do that? How do I look at you and not want to kill you? Thornhill said, I do not know. Pierre said, neither do I. But Claude says I must. Claude says we are better than the Nazis. We do not murder prisoners. We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of others. But you are not innocent. You are guilty. And I want you to pay. Thornhill said, then make me pay. Pierre said, how? If I kill you, I become a murderer. If I let you die, I become complicit. If I do nothing, I am a coward. There is no good choice, only bad ones. And I hate you for that. I hate you for putting me in this position, for making me choose between my daughter's memory and my own humanity. Thornhill said, I am sorry. Pierre said, stop saying that. Sorry does not help. Sorry does not change anything. My daughter is still dead, and you are still alive, and I still have to choose what kind of man I am. Thornhill said, what kind of man do you want to be? Pierre looked at him. He said, I want to be the kind of man my daughter would be proud of, the kind of man who does not let hate destroy him, the kind of man who is better than the people who started this war. But I do not know if I can be that man. Not when I look at you. Not when I see the face of the man who killed her. Collins spoke. He had been silent, listening. Now he said, Monsieur Pierre, we did not mean to kill your daughter. We were aiming for the railway. We made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but it was not murder. It was war. Pierre turned to him, his face hard. He said, war. You think calling it war makes it better. You think that excuses what you did. My daughter did not care about war. She did not care about railways or Germans or England. She cared about her rabbit, about drawing pictures, about her father coming home. And you killed her. You. Not war. You. Collins said we were following orders. Pierre said so were the Germans. So are the SS. So is everyone who kills. They all say they were following orders. They all say it was not their fault. But someone is always responsible. Someone always pulls the trigger. Someone always drops the bomb. And this time it was you. Collins looked away, said nothing. Harris said, Monsieur Pierre, we understand your anger. We understand your pain. But we cannot change what happened. We can only try to survive. Try to get home. Try to make sure this does not happen again. Pierre laughed, a bitter sound. He said, make sure it does not happen again. How? By bombing more villages, by killing more children, by making more fathers dig their daughters out of rubble. That is what you will do. That is what war is, and you will call it necessary. Call it duty. Call it anything except what it is. Murder. Thornhill said he is right. Collins and Harris stared at him. Collins said, "Sir." Thornhill said he is right. We murdered his daughter. We murdered 40 people. We can call it war, call it a mistake, call it orders. But the truth is we killed them. We are responsible, and no amount of excuses will change that. Harris said, "Sir, you are talking about court-martial, about execution. If we say this to command, they will hang us." Thornhill said maybe they should. Harris said, "Sir." Thornhill said we killed 40 civilians, 40 French civilians, people we were supposed to be liberating, people who were on our side. We killed them because we made a mistake, because we did not check our coordinates carefully enough, because we were in a hurry, because we wanted to drop the bombs and go home. And now they are dead, and we are alive, and we are hiding in their church while they protect us from the Germans. Tell me, Harris, do we deserve to go home? Do we deserve to live? Harris did not answer. He looked at the floor. Collins said, "Sir, we were doing our jobs. We were following orders. We did what we were trained to do." Thornhill said, "And that makes it acceptable." Collins said, "It makes it war." Thornhill said, "No, it makes it murder. War is just the excuse we use." Pierre stood up. He said, "You are starting to understand. Good. Now let me tell you what happens next. You stay here. You hide. The Germans search. If they find you, they kill you. They kill me. They kill Claude. They kill everyone in this village. So you stay quiet. You stay hidden. You do not move. You do not make noise. You do not exist. And when the Germans leave, we get you out. We send you to the resistance. They take you to the coast. You get on a boat. You go back to England. You go back to your families. You go back to your lives. And my daughter stays in the ground. You understand. You live. She dies. That is the trade. That is what I have to accept." Thornhill said, "Why? Why are you doing this? Why are you helping us?" Pierre said, "Because Claude is right. If I let you die, I become like the Nazis. I become a murderer. And I will not let your bombs turn me into that. I will not let you take my humanity the way you took my daughter. So I help you. Not because I forgive you. Not because I think you deserve it. But because I refuse to let you make me a monster." Thornhill said, "Thank you." Pierre said, "Do not thank me. Just live. Live with what you did. Live with the guilt. Live with the knowledge that a 6-year-old girl is dead because of you. And when you go home and you see your family and you sleep in your bed, remember her. Remember Marie. Remember that she will never do any of those things because you killed her. That is your punishment. That is what you owe her. A lifetime of guilt. A lifetime of remembering. A lifetime of knowing that you are alive and she is not. And there is nothing you can do to change it." Pierre put the photograph back in the box, closed it, stood up, walked to the stairs, stopped, turned back. He said, "One more thing. When this war ends, when you go back to your life, do not tell people you are a hero. Do not tell people you fought for freedom. Tell them the truth. Tell them you killed children. Tell them you murdered families. Tell them you bombed villages. Tell them you are a coward who hid while Frenchmen saved your life. Tell them that. Or do not tell them anything. But do not lie. Do not pretend. Do not make yourself the hero of this story. Because you are not. You are the villain. And the only reason you are alive is because your victims chose to be better than you." He walked up the stairs, left Thornhill and his crew alone in the dark basement, alone with their guilt, alone with the truth, alone with the photograph of a 6-year-old girl named Marie, who would never grow up because they had dropped bombs on the wrong target. The Germans came back 3 days later, more of them this time, a full squad, 20 soldiers, an officer, Oberleutnant, lieutenant. He walked through the village like he owned it, Thornhill watched through a crack in the basement wall, watched the Germans search, watched them question villagers, watched them threaten. The officer stopped at the church, looked at the damaged roof, looked at Claude, said something in German. Claude responded, calm, steady. The officer did not believe him. Thornhill could see it, could see the suspicion. The officer ordered his men to search the church. Thornhill moved away from the wall, whispered to Harris and Collins, Germans, searching the church. Do not move, do not breathe, do not exist. They nodded. All three of them froze, listened, heard boots on the floor above, heard furniture moving, heard voices, heard footsteps getting closer, getting louder. Thornhill reached for his Webley. 6 rounds, 20 Germans, suicide. But he would not be captured, would not be interrogated, would not give up the villagers. He would shoot, would take as many with him as possible, would die fighting. That was the only choice. The footsteps stopped at the basement door. Thornhill aimed his gun at the door, finger on trigger, ready. The door opened. Light flooded in. A German soldier appeared, young, maybe 20. He looked down the stairs, looked into the darkness, saw nothing. The basement was too dark, too full of shadows. The soldier called up to the officer, said something. The officer responded, sounded impatient. The soldier started down the stairs. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Thornhill held his breath, aimed at the soldier's chest. 10 feet, 8 feet, 6 feet. The soldier stopped, looked around, looked right at Thornhill. Their eyes met. Thornhill saw recognition. The soldier saw him, saw the gun, saw the British uniform. The soldier opened his mouth, started to shout. Thornhill squeezed the trigger. The gun did not fire. Misfire. The bullet did not go. The soldier shouted, Alarm! Germans! The officer yelled orders. Boots thundered down the stairs. Thornhill threw his gun down, raised his hands, said, Do not shoot. We surrender. We are unarmed. The Germans poured into the basement, grabbed Thornhill, grabbed Harris, grabbed Collins, threw them to the ground. Rifles pressed against their heads. Thornhill lay still, waited to see if they would execute him on the spot, waited to see if this was how he died. The officer came down the stairs, looked at the 3 British airmen lying on the floor. He smiled, a cold smile. He said in English, You are Royal Air Force. Yes. Thornhill said yes. The officer said, You are the ones who bombed this village. Thornhill did not answer. The officer kicked him, said, Answer me. Thornhill said yes. We bombed the village. The officer laughed. He said, And now the villagers are hiding you, protecting you, after you killed their families. How amusing. Tell me, where are the others? You were a crew of 7. Where are the other 4? Thornhill said, I do not know. The officer kicked him again, said, Liar. Where are they? Thornhill said, I do not know. We bailed out. We got separated. I have not seen them. The officer crouched down, put his face close to Thornhill's, said, You will tell me, or I will make you tell me. Thornhill said, I do not know. The officer stood up, said, Take them. We will interrogate them at headquarters, and then we will execute them. The soldiers pulled Thornhill to his feet, tied his hands behind his back, did the same to Harris and Collins, marched them up the stairs, out of the church, into the daylight. The villagers were gathered in the square, all of them, old men, women, children, forced to watch. The officer stood in front of them, said in French, You have been hiding British airmen, enemy combatants. That is treason. That is punishable by death. I should execute all of you. Burn your village. Leave nothing. But I am merciful. I will give you a choice. Tell me where the other British airmen are. Tell me who helped hide them, and I will spare your lives. Refuse, and I will execute 10 of you, starting with him. He pointed at Claude. Claude stood still, did not move, did not flinch. The officer said, You, old man, you are the leader. You organized this. Tell me where the others are. Claude said, I do not know. The officer said, Liar. Claude said, I am telling the truth. We only found 3. The rest are gone. The officer said, I do not believe you. He drew his pistol, aimed it at Claude's head, said, last chance. Where are they? Claude said, I do not know. The officer pulled the trigger. Claude fell, dead, shot in the head, blood pooling on the cobblestones. The villagers screamed, cried. The officer said, who is next? Tell me where the British are, or I keep shooting. A woman stepped forward, middle-aged, thin, terrified. She said, please, do not kill anyone else. We are telling the truth. We only found 3. The other 4 are not here. The officer said, where are they? The woman said, we do not know. Maybe they are dead. Maybe the Germans found them. Maybe they escaped. We do not know. The officer aimed his gun at her, said, you are lying. The woman said, no. Please, we are not lying. The officer said, prove it. The woman said, how? The officer said, bring me the British, all of them, or I start killing. The woman said, we cannot. We do not have them. The officer shot her. She fell, dead. The villagers wailed. The officer said, I will keep killing until someone tells me the truth. He aimed at another villager, a young boy, maybe 12. The boy was crying, shaking. The officer said, you, boy, do you know where the British are? The boy shook his head, could not speak. The officer said, speak. The boy said, no, I do not know. The officer said, useless. He started to squeeze the trigger. A voice shouted, stop. Everyone turned. A man stepped forward. Thornhill recognized him. Jacques, a villager, maybe 30. Quiet. Had not spoken before. Jacques said, I know where they are. The officer lowered his gun. Said, where? Jacques said, there are 2 more, hidden in the forest, in a cabin. I can take you there. The officer said, why did you not say so before? Jacques said, I was afraid. Afraid you would kill me. The officer said, and now? Jacques said, now I am more afraid of you killing everyone else. The officer nodded. He said, smart. Take me to them. Jacques said, yes. But first, you must promise. No more killing. The officer said, I promise nothing. But if you are telling the truth, I will consider mercy. Jacques nodded. He walked toward the forest. The officer followed, took 10 soldiers with him, left the rest to guard the square, to guard Thornhill and his crew, to guard the villagers. Pierre appeared next to Thornhill. His face was hard, angry. He whispered, Jacques is a collaborator. He works for the Vichy government. He is a traitor. He will lead them to your men, and then he will be rewarded. And we will all suffer. Thornhill said, can you stop him? Pierre said, no. If I try, they will shoot me. They will shoot everyone. Thornhill said, then my men are dead. Pierre said, yes, because of Jacques, because of you, because you brought this hell to our village. Thornhill said, I am sorry. Pierre said, sorry will not save them. Sorry will not bring Claude back. Sorry will not resurrect the woman the officer just shot. Sorry is worthless. Thornhill said, I know. Pierre said, good. Now watch. Watch what your mistake has cost. Watch your men die. Watch us die. Watch everything burn. And remember, this is your fault. All of it. An hour passed. The officer returned. He was smiling. Behind him his soldiers were dragging 2 men, British airmen, Davies, Palmer, both alive, both beaten, their faces bloody, their uniforms torn. They were thrown to the ground next to Thornhill. Davies looked at Thornhill, said, sir, I am sorry. We tried to hide. We tried to evade. But Jacques found us, betrayed us. Thornhill said, it is not your fault. Davies said, we are dead. Thornhill said, yes, we are. The officer stood over them. He said, 5 British airmen. Good. He looked at Jacques, said, you have done well. You will be rewarded. Jacques said, thank you. The officer said, now, as for the villagers, you hid enemy combatants. That is treason. 10 of you will be executed. As a warning. The villagers gasped, cried, begged. The officer ignored them. He pointed at 10 people, random, old men, women, A teenage boy. He said you, 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 you. Line up. The 10 villagers were pushed forward, lined up against the church wall. The officer said ready. Aim. The soldiers raised their rifles. Thornhill shouted no. Stop. This is not their fault. They were just trying to survive. The officer looked at him, said yes, just like you, just like everyone. But someone must pay, and today it is them. Fire. The rifles cracked. The 10 villagers fell, dead. Blood on the church wall, blood on the ground. The other villagers screamed, sobbed, fell to their knees. The officer said, "Let this be a lesson. Anyone who helps the enemy will die." He turned to Thornhill, said, "As for you, you and your crew will be taken to headquarters. You will be interrogated, and then you will be executed. Load them into the truck." The soldiers grabbed the 5 British airmen, threw them into a truck, drove away, left the village behind, left the bodies, left the blood, left the survivors to bury their dead, left Pierre standing in the square staring at the graves, at Claude's body, at the woman's body, at the 10 executed villagers, staring at the cost of mercy, the cost of hiding enemies, the cost of trying to be better than the Nazis, and wondering if it had been worth it. The war ended 8 months later. May 1945. Germany surrendered. The camps were liberated. The prisoners came home. Thornhill and his crew were among them. They had survived interrogation, survived imprisonment, survived the war, all 5 of them. Davies, Collins, Harris, Palmer, Reed. They came back to England. Heroes. That was what the newspapers called them. Brave airmen who had evaded capture, who had survived behind enemy lines, who had come home against all odds. They were given medals, commendations, parades. People cheered for them, thanked them, called them saviors. Thornhill said nothing, did not correct them, did not tell them the truth, did not tell them about the village, about the 40 dead, about Claude, about the woman, about the 10 executed villagers, did not tell them he was not a hero. He was a murderer, and the only reason he was alive was because his victims had chosen mercy, and then died for it. Thornhill went home, back to his wife, back to his life, but he could not sleep, could not eat, could not function. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Marie's photograph, saw Claude falling, saw the woman shot, saw the 10 villagers executed, saw Pierre staring, accusing, blaming. Thornhill tried to forget, tried to move on, tried to be normal, but he could not. The guilt ate at him, consumed him, destroyed him. His wife asked what was wrong. He said nothing. She asked if he wanted to talk about the war. He said no. She stopped asking, stopped trying. Eventually she left, took their children, said she could not live with a ghost. Thornhill did not blame her. He was a ghost, a shell, a man haunted by the faces of the people he had killed, the people who had saved him, the people who had died because of him. Thornhill started drinking, tried to drown the memories, tried to numb the guilt. It did not work. The memories stayed. The guilt stayed. The faces stayed. One night he sat in his apartment, drunk, alone, staring at his service revolver, the Webley, 6 rounds. 1 round was all he needed. 1 round to end it, to escape, to stop the pain. He picked up the gun, put it to his head, finger on the trigger, thought about pulling it, thought about how easy it would be, how simple, how final. Then he heard Pierre's voice, in his memory, "Just live. Live with what you did. Live with the guilt. A lifetime of guilt. A lifetime of remembering. That is your punishment." Thornhill lowered the gun. Pierre was right. Death was escape. Life was punishment. And Thornhill deserved to be punished, deserved to live with the guilt, deserved to remember, every day, every night, forever. 1947, 2 years after the war. Thornhill received a letter from France, From the village. From Pierre. The letter said, "Dear Flight Lieutenant Thornhill, I am writing to inform you that the village has been rebuilt. The houses have been repaired. The church has been restored. We have erected a memorial for the 40 civilians killed in the bombing, for Claude, for the woman, for the 10 villagers executed by the Germans, for everyone we lost. We are holding a ceremony to remember them, to honor them. You are not invited, but I am telling you anyway, because you should know. You should know that we remember, that we have not forgotten, that the dead are still dead, and that you are still responsible. I do not expect you to come. I do not want you to come, but I wanted you to know. The village survived. We survived. Despite you. Despite the war. Despite everything. We are still here. And we remember. Pierre." Thornhill read the letter 10 times. Then he made a decision. He would go. He would go to the village. He would face Pierre. He would face the survivors. He would face what he had done. He would not hide, would not run, would not escape. He would go. And he would accept whatever they did to him. If they wanted to kill him, he would let them. If they wanted to spit on him, he would accept it. If they wanted him gone, he would leave. But he would go. He owed them that. Owed them his presence. Owed them his guilt. Owed them the acknowledgement that he had destroyed their lives, and that he remembered. Thornhill traveled to France, found the village. It looked different, cleaner, newer, the houses rebuilt, the church restored, but the graves were still there. 40 wooden crosses, fresh flowers on each one. Thornhill walked to the memorial, a stone monument in the center of the square, engraved names, 40 civilians, Claude, the woman, 10 executed villagers. Thornhill read every name, memorized every one, saw Marie's name, 6 years old, daughter of Pierre, killed by Allied bombing. Thornhill knelt, put his hand on the stone, said, "I am sorry. I am so sorry." A voice behind him said, "Sorry is not enough." Thornhill turned, saw Pierre, older, grayer, thinner, but still alive, still here. Pierre said, "You came." Thornhill said, "Yes." Pierre said, "Why?" Thornhill said, "Because I owed it to them, to you, to everyone." Pierre said, "You owe us nothing. You took everything. There is nothing left to give." Thornhill said, "Then why did you write to me?" Pierre said, "Because I wanted you to know, wanted you to see, wanted you to understand that we are still here, still living, still remembering, still carrying the weight of what you did. I wanted you to know that you are not alone in your guilt. We carry it too. Every day, every time we see these graves, every time we walk past this memorial, we remember, and we blame you, and ourselves, for saving you, for choosing mercy, for being better than the Nazis, and watching our people die because of it." Thornhill said, "I do not know how to live with this." Pierre said, "Neither do I. But we do. We wake up. We work. We live. We remember. That is all we can do. That is all anyone can do." Thornhill said, "I tried to kill myself." Pierre said, "I know. I thought about it too. After Marie died, after Claude was executed, after the 10 were shot, I thought about ending it. But I did not, because Marie would not have wanted that, because Claude died believing we were better than them, because the 10 were killed for choosing mercy. If I die now, I make their deaths meaningless. So I live. I carry the guilt. I remember. And I make sure the world remembers. That is my punishment. That is my purpose." Thornhill said, "What do you want from me?" Pierre said, "Nothing. Just go. Go back to England. Live your life. Carry your guilt. Remember my daughter. Remember what you did. That is enough. That is all I want." Thornhill said, "Can you forgive me?" Pierre said, "No, I cannot. I will never forgive you. But I do not hate you anymore. Hate takes energy, and I have none left. I just remember. and I live. And I make sure Marie is not forgotten. That is all I can do. Thornhill stayed in the village for 3 days, walked through the streets, talked to the survivors, listened to their stories, heard about Claude's bravery, about the woman who had 3 children, about the 10 villagers, about their lives, their families, their dreams, all destroyed by him, by his bombs, by his mistake. Thornhill listened, did not defend himself, did not make excuses, just listened, just accepted, just carried the weight. On the 3rd day he left, went back to England, back to his empty apartment, back to his guilt. But something had changed. He was not alone anymore. Pierre was right. The villagers carried the guilt too, carried the weight, carried the memory, and they were still living, still surviving, still choosing to be human. If they could do that, then Thornhill could too. He stopped drinking, started working, started living, not happily, not without guilt, but living, remembering, honoring the dead by refusing to forget them. Thornhill lived for another 40 years, never remarried, never had more children, spent his life working with refugees, with displaced families, with victims of war, spent his life trying to atone, trying to balance the scales, knowing he never could, knowing 40 deaths could not be undone, but trying anyway. He never spoke publicly about the village, never told the story, never sought forgiveness, just worked, quietly, humbly, trying to be the man Pierre's daughter would have been proud of, trying to be better than the man who had dropped those bombs. Thornhill died in 1987. He was 68 years old. Heart attack, quick, painless. In his will, he left everything to the village, to maintain the memorial, to care for the graves, to make sure the 40 names were never forgotten. Pierre received the letter, read it, stood at Marie's grave, said to her, "Your killer never forgot you." He spent his life trying to make up for what he did. It was not enough. It could never be enough. But he tried. And maybe that counts for something. Maybe. The village still stands. The memorial still stands. The name's still there. 40 civilians. Claude. The woman. 10 executed villagers. And now one more name has been added. Not on the memorial, but in the village records, in the stories passed down. Flight Lieutenant James Thornhill, the British pilot who bombed the village, who killed 40 people, who was saved by his victims, who watched them die for saving him, who spent his life trying to atone, who never succeeded, but tried anyway. The village remembers him, not as a hero, not as a villain, but as a man who made a terrible mistake, who carried the guilt, who lived with it, who tried to be better, and who proved that even in war, even after unforgivable acts, humanity can survive, not through forgiveness, not through redemption, but through memory, through guilt, through the refusal to forget, through the choice to keep living, to keep remembering, to keep being human, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts.